Welcome to Beloved Life. I'm Amy, and this is Into the Margins. This is where I'm moving years of notes from my study Bible into my journaling Bible. Every book holds something entirely different. Some books are really quick, and some are going to take me hours to transfer the notes over. But every single book is a little time capsule of that season of my life and what God showed me through the time when I studied that book. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe because we're going to be doing all 66 books of the Bible here. And if you've been here a while, welcome back. Let's dive into today's book. I'm so excited to dive into the book of Esther with you guys. This has quickly become one of my favorite books in the entire Bible. And the crazy thing about this book is it never once mentions the name of God. Now, this book, chronologically in the timeline of the Bible, actually falls between Ezra chapters 6 and 7. That was something I never knew. And that's why reading the Bible chronologically can be really hard sometimes because it doesn't always move chronologically. So, what's so cool about this book is that God works behind the scenes to accomplish the purposes that only He alone could design and orchestrate. I like to use the left side of this Bible, this big blank page, to just kind of put some more general notes about this book. As you can see, I still have a lot of space, and I continue to plan to add more notes over the years when I go back and study Esther each time. Chapter 1 is all about setting up the story that's about to unfold, and buckle up because it is a wild one. So, in this first chapter, we have a queen named Vashti, and she is deposed and she refuses to take part in the festivities that the king has planned at the time. So, she basically quits as queen. Then we have about 4 years that happens between chapters 1 and 2. And then we've got Esther comes onto the scene. There's basically going to be a beauty pageant, and about 400 women show up and are brought onto the scene for the king to choose from a new queen. Now, Esther is a very godly woman, and God gives her favor here in chapter 2. This is no accident that she ends up being chosen as queen. I have a note here from chapter 2 that Esther's humble wisdom was shown in the way she allowed the custodian of the women to assist her preparations. Basically, these women got all of these beauty preparations to get them ready to be presented before the king. So then we have Haman who comes on the scene, and he is purely evil and he is promoted. God even uses this promotion to work out his plan. But the story of Haman is a story of how quickly evil can escalate when pride is unchecked and in power. But Haman comes up with a plot to kill all the Jews. Well, Esther is Jewish, and so is her relative Mordecai. So she's the queen, and nobody knows she's Jewish. So Mordecai seeks out Esther. This is where we get in chapter 4, one of my favorite verses of the entire Bible, that perhaps Esther was chosen for such a time as this. Now, Mordecai's faith isn't necessarily in Esther. It's actually in the faithfulness of God, which I think is such a good thing to point out. Another note that I made here in that doing nothing, so if Esther would have stayed silent or not have tried to change the king's mind, I know for me it can be really challenging in those moments to decide if I should speak up or stay quiet. And one thing I wanted to point out in chapter 4 too is that Esther was supported by prayer and fasting. In chapter 5, Esther's big moment is here, and she exposes Haman. Haman's problem wasn't Mordecai, it was the emptiness in his own heart. So then in chapters 5 and 6 is when Esther is going to approach the king at the banquet and make her request. And one of my favorite things in chapter 6 is how that God wakes the king up in the middle of the night, and then he founds this report about Mordecai. And it's like God just gives him all this information when he wakes up. And then God lets Haman fall into his own trap. His pride and arrogance was the cause of his ultimate humiliation and ultimately death. Esther showed her wisdom here in how she framed her request, prayed for discernment and guidance on how to propose this request to the king. And it showed wisdom, and she appealed on a personal basis. And she knew that she never had done anything but please the king. And so she was going to take that chance of speaking up to see if the king would grant her request. And then in chapter 8 and 9 is us looking at the reversal of the king's edict. Now, he could not actually revoke the previous decree, the king, so he simply made another decree, a new one, giving support to the Jews to be able to defend themselves against their attackers. And the people also saw that God was working on behalf of his chosen people, and they wanted in on that. And so as a result, at the end of chapter 8, there were a ton of people that came to the Jewish faith. These Jewish people had the king of the land on their side, but we actually have Jesus, the ultimate king, on our side. Esther didn't want to just settle for anything less than total victory. Mordecai remembered to record these events and sent letters to all the Jewish people in the provinces. It's really important to remember all that God has done in our lives. And in the final chapter 10, Mordecai's greatness is celebrated. Now, here on this last page, I loved this list of things that the Enduring Word commentary pointed out about seeing the hand of God moving in a supernatural way. And writing all of this down really helped me to see all the ways that God was present in arranging everything in the story, even though he was never once mentioned. So that wraps up the book of Esther for us. If this is your first time you've seen this series, I'm planning to do this book after book. So let me know in the comments below what book you guys would like to see next. And don't forget to subscribe and like so you never miss a future video. Thanks for watching.